We get to talk today about using coaching to drive value, and I think what we're going to do during this time is give them some highlights of our session and what we found super fun about it. So one unique part of the conversation is that we're coming to you with a bunch of research that supports what's happening in the coaching world, how that movement is driving value, but also the practitioner point of view, right? Because we're still actively on the ground doing that. So some things that I would want to be sure people understood is that we are talking about a larger movement. Coaching has been growing in terms of its utilization to drive both employee engagement, but also really important outcomes in business, including increased revenue, team performance, and productivity.
And increased retention.
And increased retention, right? So,
which is big for the talent war. I mean, if you're looking for talent in your organization, coaching is a great way to increase your retention and become more attractive to new talent coming in.
Yep. So I think that I like Seth Godin's idea about it's not really a war for talent, like for competence, because you can buy that anywhere.
Right.
It's really a war for what he says is attitude. But I think about that as the character and the consciousness piece, right?
We should talk about that.
We should.
So at P-Link Leadership, we talk about going beyond competence as a difference in leadership development and in coaching, and this idea that it's no longer enough of a differentiator as to just be competent in your job. That's, as Gretchen would say, the table stakes, or we say the door opener. It gets you in the door, it gets you the job, but what keeps you the job is
the character and the consciousness. And so coaching helps wake that up, if you will. It really just helps people become more aware of what their aspirations are, what their desired future is, how they're showing up, how they're observing what's going on in their environment. And when we think about what's changing in the world in terms of this kind of rapid pace of innovation, the rapid pace of new technology, the kind of impending changes that will come with automation and artificial intelligence and augmented reality, we want kind of our human intelligence to be at peak performance. And by peak performance, we don't just mean like flat out, like it's not an endurance game as much as it is an understanding of how we bring our most creative self to something, our most collaborative self to something. And the coaching discipline does that.
It does.
One of the things we talked about in the session is the difference between coaching, as in a one-to-one relationship, and a culture of coaching, which is, much more like broad-based, foundational, philosophical stance that kind of filters into leadership, management, infrastructure, all of that. We also had the opportunity, and actually you did it and did a great job of giving some really practical tips. So this would be a good time to kind of either do a teaser or a reminder.
Yeah, so if you are somebody who wants to create a culture of coaching in your organization and you aren't sure how to do that, or you're feeling like, well, that's bigger than me, or I don't work in HR, here's a couple things you can start. And we also say that we believe organizational flourishing begins within and continues between. So you can do both an internal reflection, self-coaching, and you can also do an external with these questions. So the first was, what is the most generous assumption I can make about this situation, this person, or this team? So when you run into a sticky situation and your head starts going, you have a mindset, because one of the things you hit that I think is important to say is this idea of coaching is about increasing self-awareness and being able to shift your mind and have a mind shift. And so this one is really about shifting your mind from more of a negative assumption to a generous assumption. And if you want to coach someone else in this situation, you can ask, what is the most generous assumption you could make about what's going on when they come to you with a challenge to help open their mind to what could be going on. That was the first one. And then the second one, which is our favorite of the year, we've been challenging ourselves with it all year, is what do I believe about this situation and how could I be wrong?
Which sounds so easy, but it's not at all.
It is
like
not
when
easy.
you're really locked into a perspective.
Right.
It's not easy, but it's a great question.
It is, and the more you practice, the first time you do it, it'll actually kind of tick you off. But then after you get practiced at it, you'll enjoy it more. And so I think that those are two things that you can do to help shift your mind and grow your own self-awareness. And again, if you have a direct report or you have a peer that comes to you with a complaint about a situation or a challenge that they're bringing, to be able to ask them, well, what do you believe about this situation and how could you be wrong? It really helps us to fight back that natural confirmation bias that our brains enact on our behalf to be more efficient in their processing. So
I think those are some good teasers to kind of give you a sense. We're talking about both the metrics of coaching and what talent analytics are letting us see kind of behind the scenes. We're talking about some of the cascading effect that you can have with Leadernomics when you get leadership and management involved with baseline skills. And we're talking about a few like actual tips that you can start, using in your own life. I think that the other one that I really like, so we have the generous assumption one, which I think is easy to remind yourself of, and kind of one you can kind of keep in your pocket all the time and check yourself on. And you have the one that's really about, the third one that I really like is when somebody comes in and complains about something, to be able to really ask the question, what would make this better for you? And that question works great with your kids, with your spouse, with your teammates, whatever it might be, right? Rather than moving right into solution mode, which is a natural instinct for a lot of us, and instead just step back, hold back, and just ask the question, and then hold the space. What would make this better for you?
So I loved how you positioned the kind of 3 big things that you could do inside your organization. I think that would be good to close with, is this idea of starting, like bringing in.
Yep. So when you kind of think about that whole systems approach, right, you're going to want some external practitioners to be able to bring in the foundation of subject matter expertise. You got to stand up an internal group of coaches so they can scale and build capacity. And then you want to give some basic coach skill training to your professionals. They're not going to be dedicated coaches, but even when I went through my coach training, I thought every single human being should do this.
Yeah,
everybody should do this because it's
you
just
should all do
such
this.
a great awakening.
We're talking to you.
Yeah.
So this is happening all day long, Facebook live streaming at the AICPA Engage conference. It is #HumanIntelligence. You need some.
And beat the bot. Beat the bot.
Keep watching, because this stuff is really good and it will help increase your own human intelligence. So stay with us all day.